Hi, everybody. It's Mike from Here the Watchman. Wow, we are in Dallas at Grapevine, Texas, actually, at the Hilton DFW Hotel, where the Remnant Warrior Conference will begin on Friday morning. It's exciting stuff. It's exciting times. There's a lot of hope being taught at this conference and a lot of practical stuff that you need to know right now. Go to hearthewatchmen.com. It's not too late to get on board for the on demand live streaming of the conference. There's a button right there on that landing page, $39, and that covers 3 months of viewing. If you use the promotional code SHIP20, just use the promotional code SHIP and that will get you 20% off of that pricing. So be a part of this. And today on the show, we have with us Kevin Shipp. Kevin, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Micah, good to see you.
You know, Kevin, you've done some incredible stuff here, and I want to bring up some of those things. But you've been a member of the CIA. You were an insider. You've looked into and exposed the deep state. How did that all come to be for you?
Well, Mike, I rose up to being an internal investigator within the CIA, and as most people find out, the higher that you get up in the agency, the more things you see that are not quite constitutional. So, in my case, to make it real short, I was doing an international investigation and uncovered the fact there was a vulnerability in the CIA systems and the embassy systems where a foreign intelligence agent or a terrorist for that matter in any embassy in the world could go in through the system and identify our covert personnel, which of course is very serious because that would lead to execution and other things. So amazingly enough, I put together my report, submitted it to the CIA office involved, um, and basically was told to drop the whole investigation. So I called this division, the executive assistant, and said, "Look, I've got this detailed report of investigation that I've done here. This could be potentially serious. Let me send it to you via internal CIA mail. I want you to take a look at this. This could have serious consequences." Well, okay, go ahead and send it to us, and we'll look at it. So I sent it through internal CIA mail. Gave him about a week to look at it. Called him a week later, and I said, "So and so, did you get a chance to look over my investigative report?" The response back was, "What report?"
Ugh.
I said, "Well, the report I just sent you through official internal CIA mail. That report." Well, we didn't get any report. And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what. I'll hand carry that personally over to you and give it to you at your office." "Well, that's fine, Mr. Ship. Whatever you want to do." So I traveled over to headquarters, hand carried my investigation up to that office, to the executive aide's desk for this division chief, handed it to her across the desk, and said, Here's my report. I think you may want to take a look at this." She kind of bristled and said, "Well, okay, well, thank you. We'll look at it." And it was pretty clear that that was the end of that discussion. So I went back. I gave him another week to look this over, called her, asked her again, "So did you get a chance to look at my report?" "What report?" she says. And now I'm starting to get baffled. I said, "Ma'am, the report I just handed you a week ago across your desk in person. Well, we must have lost it. We don't know where that report is." Then I went on to the internal CIA server and found out that the report had been scrubbed from the CIA headquarters system and had disappeared. Then I received a threatening phone call on the internal secure line ordering me to drop the investigation or else. Essentially, it was my career, and hung up. So, to make a long story short, that was when I began seeing some of the corruption at the top. I wound up going outside the CIA and actually was approached by a high level officer over at the top of Department of State in their IG who asked to look at my report. They did. They had a secret meeting with me and said, "Look, we think that this is bad. We're going to do an international investigation. Keep your head low. Don't tell the CIA we're doing this. And then we'll get back to you in 3 months." So I was like, "Good, take it from here, man. This is whatever is going on here is pretty nasty." Sure enough, 3 months later, I get a call from the senior official. He says, "Can you report to the Department of State, seventh floor, top floor IG, as soon as possible?" I said, "Yes, sir, I'll be there." So I traveled over to state in Foggy Bottom there, went up and they advised me, look, we did an international investigation on your report, and we found out that it's not as bad as you thought, it's worse. And that CI officers can be identified by any foreign national through this weakness. They said, keep your head low. We are going to confront the CI on this. Hang tight. So I dutifully went back to my CI office, was called again and ordered to come to the top floor of State Department for an emergency meeting, which I dutifully responded to. And I walked into this large conference room, and there sitting at the end of the table was the senior CIA division chief in the office that had threatened me to drop the case. Then there were the two senior state IG guys and another officer who was former CIA guy, good guy, was in charge of this. Anyway, I sat there as the Department of State officially rebuked the CIA for putting the lives of its agents at risks for over 10 years, and not only doing nothing about it, but for trying to cover it up. And then it was issued in a full report to the entire intelligence community. Well, so I just shuffled my way back to CIA headquarters with this strange feeling like I've got a laser dot on my chest, and eventually wound up on a base with my family. I was second in command, but we were poisoned. It looks like it was mustard gas underneath the house. They broke into the house. They painted a chemical on the ceiling. I filed suit, and then the rest is pretty much history in my book, From the Company of Shadows. So eventually I resigned. I blew the whistle. The CIA tried to put me under the state secrets privilege and told me if I talked about the evidence of the poisoning, the doctor's diagnosis, and environmental tests, if I talked to anyone about that evidence under the state secrets privilege, I would go to prison. So I was facing prison if I talked about the evidence against the CIA. So I'm a person of faith, and was at the time, and decided after a good bit of prayer, no, I can't let this go. You know, as the saying goes, you can mess with a man, but you don't mess with his family. So I blew the whistle. I came out and revealed all the evidence that the CIA had tried to conceal. I wrote the book, From the Company of Shadows. They blacked out all the doctor's diagnosis. I built a code into the book exposing what the CIA had blacked out, ran it through the CIA censors, and they missed it. And the rest is history. So I blew the whistle on their abuse of the state secrets privilege, which they have used several times to silence whistleblowers, even recently. And that's here we are today.
Wow. You know, I mean, and you know, Kevin, this goes on to others today, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's been hundreds of people, most of which you'll never hear from, been completely destroyed. There's a whole system. I give a speech on this. Where are the whistleblowers? There's a whole system, especially within the secret parts of government, the intelligence agencies, that is designed to destroy and silence a whistleblower and his or her family.
And so once you did blow that whistle, it was all over, right?
No, it was all over. Yeah, I lost my retirement pension. They raised the interest rates on all of our loans at the CI credit union, so we couldn't afford them. We were followed. Our house was broken into a second time. I got a very courageous Texas attorney, Clint, and we filed suit against them. And then the next 4 years were just absolutely grueling with threats and intimidation. And we eventually made it through that. And the statute of limitations ran out. So the CI, we kind of have a checkmate now where they know that what they blacked out in my book and what they tried to conceal is criminal on their part. And they also know that I built a code in the book that their censors missed. But they can't do anything about that because if they were to raise that issue and it went public, then their criminal activity, so we got kind of a checkmate here. And my mission now is to expose the corruption of secrecy in our government. I call it the shadow government. And effectively, it manipulates Congress, the president, the judicial branch. And I think we all have just seen this soft coup against President Trump, of which the CIA was part. And that's exactly what I blew the whistle on before it happened. So that's what I do now. I travel around and I speak on the Constitution and the secret intelligence agency's violation of the Constitution and functioning outside of that. When in reality, we need an intelligence agency. We need a constitutional one, but it's become rogue.
Wow. Now, who was president during this time when you were going through this?
George W. Bush.
Now, my question to you is, and I guess this relates to all presidencies, did the president know about this?
Well, there's a lot of times there's a lot of times, many times, and when I mentioned that the shadow government CIA manipulates the presidency, a lot of times the CIA will engage in operations like this, in this case, or even other covert operations, and they don't advise the president, tell the president that that is what the agency is doing, and that's one of the constitutional problems. So I don't suspect that G.W. Bush knew about this, but I don't know. George Tenet was the plaintiff in my case. He's the one who tried to stop it, and then guess who his chief of staff was? John Brennan, who later was instigated the coup against President Trump. So kind of almost prophetically, the Lord had me in the middle of this whole thing as it unfolded. And then they actually tried to unseat an elected president of the United States, and that's Donald Trump. So that's what I'm going around. I'm showing people how they do it, how they tried to remove Trump, the system that's in place that allowed them to do that, and some of the reforms that need to be done to bring the CIA and the NSA back underneath the Constitution.
Wow. Now, you're coming out here to Dallas to the Hear the Watchman conference, the Remnant Warrior conference, and you're actually a keynote speaker at the luncheon, which is, we're calling it top secret because that's going to be information you're not going to be talking about in the main room. But when you present to the body here, what is it that you'll be talking about?
Well, I'm going to lay out what this system is, this mammoth juggernaut, a system of secrecy that these intelligence agencies, specifically my old agency, the system of secrecy and how it functions. I'll be getting into detail how the CIA manipulates Congress and congressional hearings. I'll talk how it manipulates the president. I'll get into some detail regarding the coup that was staged against President Trump, the first one with the Russia collusion hoax and the fake dossier, and I'll explain exactly what was involved there. And then I'll talk about the second, I call it soft coup 2.0, which is this false impeachment that we just witnessed. And once again, the CIA was right at the center of that also. So they tried twice to remove the president. I'm going to show everybody exactly how they did that, the system that they used, so that we all can be aware next time that this is what the shadow government, a lot of people call it the deep state. And I explain there's a difference between the shadow government and the deep state. But anyway, I will be showing people how the shadow government functions and what we can do about it to expose what it's doing, and then pray and work to bring our government back under the Constitution, because essentially we're under a post-constitutional government right now.
Wow, that's some exciting stuff. And folks, again, don't forget, you can be a part of his presentation by on-demand streaming. Just go to hearthewatchman.com, click the on-demand button, use the promo code SHIP, save yourself 20% off of that. You get it for 3 months, so you have plenty of time to look into it. Now, Kevin, you wrote, of course, From the Company of Shadows, but you also wrote In From the Cold.
Mm-hmm.
What is In From the Cold about?
Well, In From the Cold was my first book, first attempt to get a book through the CIA. And so it was kind of a test bed. And the initial manuscript of In From the Cold, CIA Secrecy and Operations, about 80% of the entire manuscript was blacked out completely. Kind of like the documents that the CIA gives to Congress. Okay, we'll give you the information, and then they give them a sheet that's virtually completely blacked out. Well, that's what In From the Cold was like. So I battled that back and forth, and it was kind of a test bed. I also approached some well-known publishers and heard time and time again, well, this is an incredibly fascinating story, but we don't want to cross the CIA. And at one point I said, and it also happened with From the Company of Shadows, but at one point I said to these publishers, just think about what you're saying. You, as the press, are afraid of a federal agency. You're afraid to report the truth and the facts because this agency is so powerful. What is constitutionally wrong with that picture? So I took In From the Cold. I took the information from In From the Cold, rewrote it into From the Company of Shadows with about 70% more and new information, formed my own publishing company, completed the book, ran the book through the CIA, and after about a year battle, the CIA finally approved it with their blackouts of the family's illness, the poisoning things. And then I included in the last edition, I included a code built into the manuscript, ran that by the CIA, and they missed it. And then I blew the whistle and came out publicly. And From the Company Shadows has been a bestseller on Amazon a couple times now.
Wow. So now, you brought up Amazon. How do people get a hold of your book or
The best
books?
way, thanks, Mike. The best way is I would recommend don't go through Amazon for two reasons. I'm not a big fan of Amazon and its $600 million contract with the CIA. So, first of all, second of all, if you and I get a lot of sales through Amazon, but second of all, you will not get a signed copy through Amazon, and the code won't be stamped in the back of the book. So, just to answer your question, they can go to fortheloveoffreedom.net. That's all one word, fortheloveoffreedom.net, and they can get the book there, and they'll get a signed copy by me personally, and they'll get the code stamped in the back. So that's really the best way to get it.
Fantastic. And you'll have some books here at the conference for people to
Well,
purchase?
we're back ordered. No, I'll only
Oh,
have a couple. So I would
okay.
recommend that, yeah, people don't wait for the conference. If they do want to get the book, just go to the website and get it that way.
Awesome.
So anyway,
That's
that's how
great.
they do it.
That's great, Kevin. Well, listen, God bless you for what you're doing. I mean, we are honored and very grateful to have you as
Thank you,
part of
Mike.
the team here. We truly are. So thank you for what you're
Thank
doing.
thank you,
Folks,
Mike.
that's going to wrap it up today for this edition of the Watchman's Report. We hope to see you via live stream and on demand, and we think will really make a difference in your life. As we close the show, as we always say here on the Watchman's Report, don't ever forget there's nothing that you can't do with Jesus in your heart, except nothing at all. Get out there, get busy, activate that faith. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. Kevin, again, thank you.
Mike, thank you so much for having me.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Will do.
All right, folks, we'll see you next time here on the Watchman's Report.